I wanted to talk about the how the Wim Hof method and there was another one, I'll put it in the title, somebody asked about. So what do these breathing practices do where you're radically shifting your O2 levels and your CO2 levels, right, with these long extended breath holds? And then this will get into also how, I don't know, yogic powers are developed, cities, everything from athletic feats to different levels of intuition and knowing. It's all kind of the same mechanic. I'll share like why I know all of this, but I don't have tremendous physical powers. And yeah, so your blood, there's a bunch of different ways to go into this, but you want to see everything as ether, right? So it's the water of the body contains all of the chemical reactions in the body, so that's all of the perceptions and all that, that's all in water. That's your blood, that's the water that's inside the cells, around the cells. Everything is saturated and submerged in water as the medium of transformation. Like the water is what allows and facilitates all the electrical reactions, and the water is also what connects the electrical reactions so that they're all one thing. They're all one body of water. They're all one wave. So if you look down into that, at that level of theory, you're looking at water is like basically it's a frequency and a density of electrons. And that frequency and that density of electrons, like electrical fluid, they've actually visualized this in the wires, but electricity and what people call electrons behaves identical to a fluid that's like stuck around you okay? You choking? No, you good? The electricity around atoms, it behaves very identically to water. So you're looking at it's at the level of water, that's happening fluidically, but then also as you zoom into the DNA and the molecules and all that, you're just looking at a slightly different pattern of water, or it's a slightly different density of water, and it's just different layers of fluid. The same way that you can have in the ocean, you can have like a salty or colder layer of water will sit on top of a less salty, denser one, or vice versa, and you can actually get these layers of water. What you're looking at when you're looking at molecules touching, or water touching, DNA touching, molecules touching, mitochondria, all of that, at that molecular level, you're looking at different densities of fluids. And so those fluids, those atoms, those molecules, those fluids, the electricity around those molecules or in them is like pulled taut at different levels, like a guitar string. Some of it's like too taut to vibrate, some of it's too loose to vibrate, some of it's like tuned just right and it likes to hold particular notes. And so like every string of DNA, every cell membrane, all of it is like it's just different layers of water all sandwiched next to each other, and it's vibrating, and it's got different charges to it. So like the blood has different charges to it. So like to get into the breath work stuff, you have to realize that like what's this system that you're working, and you're altering relatively surface level charge, like this O2 and CO2. As you develop the ability to discharge the oxygen content of your blood, so you can just sit there. I have the demo video up, and it's not that you stop breathing, but you can lower your respiration rate so much that you can keep it lower and lower and lower. And when I do it, I have these big swings between like 35 and 85. But with practice, the reason that I don't have crazy powers is just because I don't know how to escape my life. I can't train the way that I know that I need to train to like actualize any of this information. I'm too stuck. I'm like kind of enslaved by my career and my responsibilities and stuff like that. So it's like I had an insight where I understand and see all this stuff, but I don't know how to. You can't. It doesn't matter the activity, right? Also, basically, I'm being tested of like, you just do this all the time, just do it all the time. I see it, why don't I do it all the time? I only do it when something that I think is important is happening. Like I kind of refuse to do this all the time. So I only do it during my like 20-minute exercise breaks, or these windows of freedom that I think. You want some water? So when you hold your breath and the blood oxygen drops down to like whatever, 50%, if you kept it right there between like 40 and 60 or whatever and breathe like right there, your blood actually changes what it's magnetically attracted to. As the hemoglobin discharges, the polarity of it actually changes. So your blood becomes drawn towards an entirely different reality. So through stillness, just by lowering the respiration, like you get an extreme yo-yo version of this with the Wim Hof stuff and other breathing techniques, but ultimately if you can just be at peace and lower the respiration until your SpO2 drops lower and lower and lower, you know, into the 25s, if you're very relaxed, the very essence of your soul, your blood, changes polarity because the heme is all desaturated. And so you're transported to a different world, because that shift makes it so that you have entirely different perceptions, because the blood energy starts responding to like basically opposite polarity of that. And same thing if your body is slightly basic versus slightly acidic. There's all sorts of different ways that you can change the polarity of a system, and it'll be attracted to, obviously, if the polarity shifts, it's attracted to the opposite stuff. It's repelled by the opposite stuff when the polarity inverts. So these pole shifts are crazy because a certain polarity is inverting, so things that were attracted to each other are then repulsed by each other, and vice versa. Also, when you do the breath training to where you're depriving the oxygen by breathing a little bit slower, the heme holds onto the oxygen. The cells, all the cells, the metabolism of the breath has to pull harder on the blood to get the oxygen out of the blood. That pulling like pulls it under tension. So it's like tuning the guitar string. So it's like, imagine these strings of energy between your blood and your cells. When you slightly withhold your breath so that your SpO2 drops, the connection between the blood and the cells gets pulled taut. It's pulled tight. Whereas like if you have way too much oxygen in yourself, it's flaccid. The energy between the blood and the cells, there's no tension under it. So there's no connection. So when you do like cardio training, like heavy intense weights, tremendous use of oxygen to the point where it pulls the muscles or the breath or the metabolism or the mental focus, like pulls on the blood so hard that the connection between the blood and the object is health, is skill. It is like, then if your blood is connected to the object, then when you move your consciousness or you move your soul, obviously that part's going to move, and people see that as muscular strength or skill, stuff like that. So like when you're doing breathing techniques like that, you're kind of tuning the guitar, just establishing the connection between the blood and the body by pulling the oxygen chain or pulling the metabolic chain taut, or letting the CO2 build up. Conversely, pressurizes the system. So instead of the CO2 just being discharged as much as possible, if you let the CO2 build up a little bit, you get a little bit of back pressure. So the way that the body is most energetically connected is if the O2 is under tension and the CO2 is under back pressure, then you have this like electrochemical tensegrity structure, and then everything's bound together either via pressure or via tension. And that's obviously, that's incredibly healthy, but that's also can radically improve athletic performance. So that's what I think that breathing technique, basically, that's where the athletic performance is coming from. And then also like in terms of like it sometimes precipitates a spiritual experience. That's from the blood polarity inverting. And then your soul sees a totally different reality. All your perceptions can shift, all your conceptions can shift. stuff like that.